I would say that we start with the very beginning because I feel that there is a thin red line that goes through the career of Willem, which is the theater. And you started with the Wooster Group in New York, and your whole life has been marked by your love for theaters and experimental theater. So I would really you want to begin with that, because I think that's something that sometimes gets overlooked or forgotten.
Just when I started, that was really my identity. And I'm not one of those people that decided or trained necessarily to be an actor. I just went towards situations and groups of people, and that was a time in New York City where you could actually do that. So I went to school briefly, and make a long story short, I ended up in New York and started working with the Wooster Group, which was a small avant-garde theater company. And I was with them for close to 30 years. And that was my day job. And then I wasn't really seeking film work. I was interested in film, but that wasn't my identity. And I didn't know anybody that was really making movies. But then some people saw me at the theater and asked me to be in a movie called The Loveless. And that movie is interesting because it was directed by Catherine Bigelow. It was her first feature film, and she went on to become the first woman to receive an Academy Award for directing a film, and also was co-directed by a man, Monty Montgomery. And he went on to produce for David Lynch and also memorably played the cowboy in David Lynch's Lost Highway. So that was sort of the beginning. And I thought, I like this. I like this movie thing. I like performing for a camera. I like going someplace with a group of people and making something. So that was really sort of the beginning. There were a couple of things before that, but that's really the beginning.
How did you approach this kind of language, this kind of situation, without coming off as a, like self-parody? Because this is heightened realism, almost expressionistic realism. So,
I like the speech. It's full of imagery. It's got a strong action. Basically, I'm cursing him. I'm trying to shrivel him right before my eyes with all this imagery, wishing him this horrible fate. And the language is so rich, and to paint with the language becomes a physical thing. So you're really, it's kind of like running in platoon. You've got these, you're riding this impulse, and as it's happening, you're leaning on the gas, you're backing off, you're going, it's like a game. And you're concentrated. You have a super consciousness, super concentration, because the language is so rich. And that's my job, to deliver that language and to shrivel him with this speech. So it's a beautifully written speech, and I love doing it. I like the rhythm, the sound of it. So when you come to that, that takes you away from everything else and makes what you're doing, your existence, very specific for a moment. And that's always the beauty of performing, when everything can drop away and you can be, you get an opportunity to have this kind of otherworldly presence. And it's a combination of things coming together. In Platoon, it was the music, it's the shots, all that thing. In this, it's the language, the camera angle, the photography. So you hop on board, and that all comes together, and you ride that wave.
I would just stay a moment longer on this element, because as you were now describing these two things, that there were obviously something that is very pragmatic. So we need to do something, but on the other hand, there's a very specific elaboration of what is going on, and this balance between the pragmatic and the emotional or the spiritual, as you described it, is very interesting, because if you get too much of one or the other of these elements, the scene doesn't work. So is there a music that you listen to when you know this is going in the right way, or I have to change something when you are on set and you are where the camera is rolling? Is there something that tells you, in a way, if it's working, or you have to wait for that?
I don't worry about that. I worry about the quality of being there, I think. And that's why a strong director is so important. Because if you give yourself to, if you try to give yourself to that kind of way of being, then somebody's got to make sure that it's framed correctly and keep you on track. So I'm not, but it's true, what you describe. I mean, I always think about all performing is, you know, happens somewhere between this place of total control and another place of total abandon. And you, depending on what we're trying to accomplish, you know, you have to go between those two poles. And sometimes you go towards abandon, and then you have to correct by getting some craft or control, and vice versa.
Okay, there's a plane that Willem needs to catch, so thank you all for being here, and most of all, thank you. Grazie.
Thank you.